Well, my name is Christos Michael Sofianopoulos, owner, founder of the Olathe Hypnosis Center. We're all about creating positive change, figuring out the life you want to design, and then the life you want to create. In just a little bit about me, my mentor is William Wood from North Utah Hypnosis. Been with him for a couple of years. Got 5 kids, 3 step kids, two of my own. The two oldest don't really like pictures, so we don't got a lot of those. But this was our trip to Greece with my dad not too long ago, last year. Started my hypnosis journey somewhere around 2014 or so, and saw a guy up on stage doing some anchoring work in front of about a 4,000 person audience, and it was just amazing. It called to me. So from that point on, I was just trying to figure out how to learn everything I could, and then transition to going pro. So one of my favorite quotes is, "If you feel it, it is yours to deal with." This one is always a stinger because it removes any source of blame outwards. It's always about taking personal responsibility, because if you're the one feeling it, it's nobody else's problem except for yours. They may have done something to trigger it, but it's yours. So it's the counter to that is, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility to fix. If anybody has questions, comments, I'd love to hear them. A little bit of definitions. Hypnosis is the effective communication with the subconscious mind. Basically, it's our way of talking to the part of us that does all the automatic stuff. Trance is the utilization, right? So it's the natural phenomena that happens inside the body that we use during hypnosis. And these are kind of big, broad brush definitions just to kind of introduce some of these topics. We can always go deeper if there's additional questions. One thing I always do to distinguish hypnosis versus meditation is the awareness and mindfulness in the present moment. If you talk about some of the other cultures in like Buddhism, you might say no mind. In the production world, you might say a flow state or the void state if you're in combat sports. So it's just getting yourself more towards that present focus mindset. Present state, desired state, it's where you are, where you want to go. Meridian tapping is the techniques that came out of Chinese acupuncture. We use acupressure, so no needles, just activating the energy lines within the body to release stuck energy. And then SUDS is just subject unit of distress, a 0 to 10 score, just to kind of gauge how emotional or how intense something is. Maps. We all love our maps, extremely helpful, but they are also not the land. The reason why I bring that up is because sometimes we get caught up in the tool itself rather than what's actually going on. So it's always a good reminder that they're not always a one-to-one. Phases of change. What I really love about this one is it kind of helps us determine how to help somebody else based on where they're at. They also, interestingly, align very much with the K4 map of the hero's journey, which I was just thinking about the other day. The pre-contemplative phase is when a person has very low awareness. This is where we would say the call to adventure starts happening. Not really aware of the evidence, not aware of the problems. There's really no motivation and no thought of change. So the only way we can really help somebody in this state is to help them focus on the awareness, focus on the story, educate them around what may need to happen. A good example of this is, say, somebody who is smoking but isn't aware that it causes cancer. Nowadays, that's going to be pretty rare because it's listed on everything, but whatever their current place is. In a relationship, for example, they might not know they're doing something that causes them harm. Contemplative is where maybe now, maybe later, no real motivation, no real plan. Still kind of in that call to adventure. This is where, you may be drug across the line if you don't start taking action. So to help somebody through, we're going to be using the interview, asking what's their why, what's their purpose, where are they, where do they want to go, those kind of questions to kind of get them thinking through to help them find their motivation. Preparedness phase is the kind of the before action. They're motivated, they're aware, they're making maybe small changes, they're doing typically a lot of education, but really no action. A lot of people will get stuck here. It's the constant building, 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 and then never actually doing anything about it. I'm very much guilty of over preparing and less action. And this is where you, generally speaking, get drugged across the line and into the desert. Helping people make the plans, keeping each other accountable, which is what we're amazing at in this group. Then you get the action phase. Awareness, goals, SMART goals, grails, time bound, and then helping people stay motivated and on top of it. This is where the fun happens, the rubber meets the road, whatever analogy you want to use. This is where a lot of people start really making their journey. So road to trials is really the action phase. Maintenance phase is the garden. This is where you're seeing the success, you've maintained your success. Relapse is possible, so you have to stay vigilant. Weed your garden, right? And then the termination phase is that last part. We're past weeding, we're past all that, we're in the success, we're bringing the gold home back to our kingdom. So it's that last phase. And then we more or less start over to the next phase. But we bring all the tools and success with us. So the journey is that much easier, faster, farther. Anybody got any questions around that?
Super cool.
Yeah, I kind of have one around the termination phase. Does that mean, or does that imply that there's some sort of a benchmark or milestone of growth that should be achieved in that amount of time, or does that mean something else like transition?
It's when the habits of the change are completely automatic. You're no longer using willpower. You are a new person. Your identity has changed, and you are fully the person who does the thing.
Got it. You have become somebody different.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Whereas, like action phase, you're still using usually a lot of willpower to overcome and motivation and outside forces. Whereas the maintenance phase, you're pretty much that person, but you may not be all the way there. And then termination phase, you are now that person you sent out to be for whatever that change that you were looking for.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
So to make a point, like let's say smoking cessation, right? If you no longer identify as a smoker in the termination phase. Somebody offers you a cigarette and you're like, I don't smoke, dude. Why are you offering me that? Like, you're in the termination phase at that point. Whereas somebody in maintenance would say something more like, yeah, I used to smoke and sometimes I think about being smoking, but no thanks. So there might still be a little bit of willpower involved in the maintenance phase. Cool.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I've always found very useful in talking about subconscious and or how the mind works. And it's overly simplistic for a reason because it makes it really easy to talk about and really easy to understand. But this is like a 30,000 foot image where it just helps us as a tool and as a basic map. So the mind is effectively two sections, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And of course, this isn't accurate in terms of everything in the mind, right? But it's a useful tool to kind of talk about it in generality. So in the conscious mind, we're using logic, reason, and willpower. Logic and reason obviously are prefrontal cortex, where we're doing most of our thinking, but also what we don't think about is a lot of the times is willpower. It's a limited but renewable resource. So we only have so much energy in the day to make decisions, to overcome things. And once that's gone, we revert back to whatever our programming is, which is the subconscious mind. So if we're trying to make a change, we need to be very conscious of what is our willpower reserves so that we can continue to push forward in making the right choices, which is where the subconscious mind really comes in. Because if you can change who you are, you don't need willpower anymore. You've pre-decided everything by making it who you are versus going, yeah, that jelly donut really does look good, but I'm going to say no right now. Versus I'm the kind of person that just says no to sweets. So that's kind of the differential.
Does reason also have uh, a gas tank like willpower, and is it dismantled by distraction?
I would probably say yes. I mean, all of these can be affected by willpower because willpower is ultimately overriding whatever your programming is. So let's say I'm a good person, but now I'm tired. So I'm not going to do the good person things because I'm tired.
Or the reasonable thing?
Or the reasonable thing. Yeah.
Right. So both
Stress.
reason and willpower and logic have a limited capacity
Yep.
before we revert to the subconscious.
And of course, in a high stress state, if you become dysregulated, for example, dysregulation can override logic and reason.
Okay.
So that's where all the regulation stuff, especially that we do in K4, right?
Yeah. Beautiful.
But that's where all the subconscious processes come into play. This is your identity, your habits, your beliefs, your emotions, and all the body's autonomic functions, which is your flight and flight, all those things. So once logic or if logic and reason are overridden and willpower has been deleted, reduced, emptied, right? We revert to what's on the bottom. So if you have, let's say, a scenario where there's somebody puts a jelly donut in front of you, and one party is like, "Ooh, I really want that," but the other party's like, "Hey, I'm trying to lose weight." Now you have a conflict. If your willpower is drained, you're going to go to what your identity and beliefs and habits and emotions. So if you're in a pure emotional state, you're going to be like, "Oh, I need stress reduction. Eat the jelly donut," even though logic and reason, eating that was a bad choice because your goal is to lose weight, get fit. So when the top three are compromised, the bottom override. So you have to be the person that you want to be so that when willpower is out, you actually do the thing that you wanted to do. Which is why it's so hard to change, because a lot of the times we override ourselves with willpower without changing who we are, which is why you have to become the person you want to do to change your habits to get the result. How does that land with you guys?
Hero's journey again, baby.
Yep, absolutely.
Classic. Yeah, classic. Beautiful.
If there's no questions, anyone?
Hey, what's the difference between subconscious and unconscious?
There's no different. It's purely semantic. Unconscious, okay. Subconscious. Some people get very associated with one term based on either schooling or belief. Subconscious might imply lower than consciousness, implying a value system. Whereas unconscious versus conscious, that might not have a value system. So it's in my opinion, it's the same thing, but sometimes people put extra beliefs or feelings on top of it.
If we only had a psychologist on, they could answer this question for us.
Always happy
Preferably a
hear.
doctor or of some
Yeah.
sort.
We just had some authority on this subject. Oh,
All right. The subconscious mind are things that we are not aware of, but we can access.
Mm-hmm.
The unconscious mind, in a more traditional sense, are things that we cannot easily access, and we have to do things like dreams or more symbolic methods of they're not accessible to the conscious mind directly. That would be my definition. Subconscious things you're not aware of, but you probably could call them up if you made an effort. So Chris may not see it. I mean, feel free to overrule me, Christos, on that one.
No, I love it.
That would be my distinct.
And what I love about this is this map is just a broad stroke, whereas you can always go deeper and define things more clearly and break things apart. It's like there's probably way more big strokes we could probably add to this, but it's more of a introduction to try to get people to realize there's sections and which sections can override other sections too. Logical levels of therapy. This is one has really impacted my thought processes on how to help people, to recognize where people are at, and then just a way to kind of diagnose yourself as to where you are and what you need to change, or where that biggest lever of change that you can get. So you basically have two worlds, your inner world and your exterior world. And the pyramid is basically saying the least leverage is at the bottom, the most leverage is at the top. So the higher up the pyramid you can go, the easier or more effective that lever becomes. So you have your environment. These are all the things around you, who you hang out with, where you physically are, the things around you. For example, my cluttered shelf, right? It could potentially affect my emotional state if a clutter thing, can affect you from like a feng shui perspective. Behavior. So this is the things that we're outwardly doing. So when you're looking at somebody, you can say, "Oh, you're acting like this," so that you could gauge as an external thing. And then the skills and capabilities. This is the things you know and the things that you're doing. So for example, if somebody, let's say, is a smoker, and I take them from a non-smoking house to a smoking house, the likelihood of them continuing to smoke is pretty high, because they could just go to the neighborhood market and go buy cigarettes, because we're not changing the reasons why they're smoking in the first place. So this is where we start getting into the inner world and the higher levels of leverage. Values are what you find important in the world. So values, let's say family is the most important thing to me. Like that would be a value. Acting honorably, never lying. Those are going to be your value sets. Versus beliefs, which is how the world works. So a value could be, one of the ones that I heard was, I value a personal, intimate relationship, but all men are evil. So your value is, I want a personal relationship, but the belief is all men are evil. So therefore, you're never going to be able to fulfill that value because you can't find a mate. Or if, say, stress is bad, but stress can motivate me. So there's just things that you can set, and then when people talk, you can really start parsing these out. So you can kind of see where they are by the language that they speak. And then identity is just beliefs, but about self. So you usually get that in the form of an I am statement. I am this or I am that. And then the highest level is beyond identity or beyond self. This is going to be your community, your religion, your spiritual practices. K4, for example, right? We're a community of men together, and we all have that common knowledge, that common thing that are keeping us together. So, which can, a lot of times will override all the others because we're doing it for somebody else, and we're usually more willing to sacrifice externally than we are internally.
Great.
So I just threw a lot at you guys. What are your thoughts?
This makes so much sense. The way that you have this mapped out to distinguish between value, beliefs, and identity, I see it and I instantaneously can go back to previous times in my life where I didn't know how to navigate this and I was all jumbled up, you know, and I had incorrect beliefs based upon my values, like all the time. I mean, I can, like, the way that this is described just like went poof, you know, it opened my eyes to my past. Thank you.
Yeah, and anytime you're in a scenario, you listen to the words that somebody's using, especially like an employee, a kid, a spouse, any relationship really. Where does the problem live? Because if it's just environment, they need a stapler. Hand them a stapler, right? If it's a skill or a behavior, it gets a little bit more interesting, right? Skill you can teach, behavior you can teach. But if it's a behavior like showing up late, for example, or not engaging in your company, then they probably don't understand your values.
This
If they
tells
don't
you where
understand
to,
your values, what was that?
this tells you where to begin the storm.
Right. And then if they don't believe the same things you believe, they're probably not going to value the same values you do. Right. And then who are they? Are they a person who shows up? Are they a person who wants to better themselves? Or do they just want to collect a paycheck? You know, so it's you can meet them where they're at and then guide them through the process.
Like I was saying, Christos, that I've been having all my clients right after they do their values clarification work, which is interesting, and it's powerful to be able to to make decisions, you know, off of action, you know, based values. But to have them do the next internal conversation about what are their beliefs around each one of those values, it's just a incredibly expansive experience, because that's where the self-sabotage and the resistance and the and what I have found universally since I got this from you is everyone has beliefs that are at least nuancing, if not directly shadowing what their intentional values are. So it's a powerful way to look at things we can change, which is our, you know, perspective on the world versus surrendering what is important in the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So yeah, so thank you for that. And even in the corporate setting, what people say their organizational core corporate values, and then to ask the leadership team what their beliefs are about those, woo, it unlocks a huge amount of legitimate conversation about alignment. So super powerful, man.
Well, and then that goes to the other slide too, right? If your identity, values, and beliefs don't align with your underlying, right, your willpower is eventually going to run out, and then you're going to do the things against those things.
Yep, sabotage,
Self-sabotage, breaking rules at work, not doing projects on time. All those things start creeping up, which is why it's the leverage model, right? Where can you make the smallest change for the biggest effect? If there's any other questions or comments on this one before I go on? Cool. The meta model is an interesting map. And just kind of reiterating, maps are not the land, but they give us clues to where we are and where to proceed. The meta model is mostly about the art of asking good questions to discover the deeper thoughts behind it. Where this comes really interesting, and using the pyramid and other of the maps, is we can really start understanding the communication styles, the communication between people. So just take a second, close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to imagine there's two people. It could be anybody, person one and person two. That person one has an emotional state. Let's say they're a little bit anxious. They have a thought, which then is colored by their emotions. Then they've had experiences in their life, values, beliefs, identity beyond identity, which then further colors that thought. And then it goes through the language filters, where they are, how they learn the words, where they're going. And then they actually create the sound of the words. Then that sound travels a distance and meets person two. They receive that sound. Maybe they didn't hear it quite right. Then that sound gets translated through their language filters, which is colored by all their experiences, their values, their beliefs, their identity, their beyond identity. And then it's colored by their emotional state. Maybe they're anxious too, so they're feeling a little self-conscious. And then they have an image in their head is created. Now, open your eyes and just imagine. This is every conversation we have with anyone, always. It goes through all of those filters from one person's initial thought or initial image all the way back to the other person. It's amazing we can even communicate at all.
Magical.
I want to give an example. I want you all to think of a dog. Philip, what do you think of?
Black German Shepherd.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you think of?
Black Lab.
Black Lab. Jacob, what do you think of? You're still on mute.
Think of a Mexican street nut.
Yeah. But all I said was think of a dog, right? Every one of us is going to think of a different one because we have a specific dog in mind, probably the dog you have or the dog you used to have. So when I say dog, everybody thinks of something different. This is the dilemma that we have with communication. What's up here has to be thought of, communicated clearly through all of our filters, understanding all the other person's filters to give them a clear message. So it's our responsibility to effectively communicate, but it is not our responsibility for their emotional state. And that is really hard sometimes because we see the result of the emotions, but it's not our job for the emotion, where it's our job to communicate the message we need to be communicated effectively.
This one lands heavy.
Yeah.
Because I've been in it for this last month.
It's hard.
I've been scrapping. And I have a vision of what I want to create in my life that I realize is landing as a very different dog with my wife. Mm-hmm. She holding a very different dog in her head when I propose certain things. So,
well,
woo!
This is how you can understand that better.
Yeah, I got to revisit this little conversation.
So there are a couple main things in the meta model. Deletions. This is from a picture. So I was just telling you a story about the dog, right? Well, color, all that. If I paint a picture, hold up a picture or something like that, and then one person sees the dog, the other person sees the house, the other person sees the trees, and I get you all to describe that image, you're all deleting something because we all have a focus that is colored by emotions, beliefs, all that stuff, right? That's the pyramid. And then whatever we're focusing on stays, everything else gets deleted.
Hey, so when I say dog, and it's kind of this cool, optimistic, powerful animal, first when that's the emotions connected to my dog.
Mm-hmm.
So other people may have sadness because the dog they lost.
Yep.
So
Or maybe
that's
they
the
had
next
a
level.
childhood experience where a dog bit them and they're terrified of
Mhm.
dogs.
So that's the story or the emotion that's underneath the concept of dog.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm.
And then you have distortions. This is where meanings get changed, which is what you were just talking about. Dog does not mean the same thing to every person. This is the dog equals pain, right? That's the complex equivalence. Or changing the meaning. This causes this. You're a dog person, therefore you're a good person, or therefore you're a bad person. Oh, you own 7 cats? That must be you crazy cat lady, right? Those are your distortions that change the meaning of the capital T truth, right? Capital T truth is just what's there. The lowercase t truth is everything you're creating around that. And then you have generalizations. All dog people are outdoors people. That would be a generalization. Is that true? Probably for some, but not for all. So this is where all men are evil, right? That's a generalization. Clearly not true. This is where the judgments, the shoulds, the musts, the universal languages, possibility, impossibility, all those words that encompass everything, you can immediately go, oh, they're generalizing. Oh, they're always that way. No, that's not true. Generalization. They might be often even, but not always. So you can see where they are emotionally, because once they start using generalizations, emotions have almost always overridden that conversation at that point.
Mm.
Or if you get a really an over emotion on something, a lot of the times you can see they've really just regressed to some other point in their life. Like, whoa, hey, check that, because that emotional state does not match the current situation.
I'll use this a lot when I'm gauging a room. So if I'm in a group of people, if I'm leading a discussion at work or whatever, I tell people that one of my superpowers is oversimplification.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that when you do that, you paint everybody with the same brush, you make a broad sweeping generalization, somebody's going to take issue with that. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for hey, wait a minute. Okay, you outed yourself. This is exactly why I did what I did. Let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
Let's unpack it a little bit, right? So this is it's interesting because this is generally something we don't want to do, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, I use this as a tool at work.
Right. It's a tool of recognition. It could also be used to help drive a conversation. It could also be used to help figure out where somebody's at, what they're feeling.
Yeah.
So
100%.
if you're having a calm, rational conversation and all of a sudden they start deleting, distorting, and generalizing, you've just lost them. Right. They went somewhere emotional, and that, pause, like, hey, what just happened? Tell me what you're feeling.
So they're been subconscious at that point.
Right. A lot of the times, I mean, we can start going into like Gestalt theory and stuff like that, but there's emotional chains, and anywhere along that chain gets added to, like, fear, for example. Fear has a chain that had an original source, And then every experience that had fear gets added to that chain. So if you're in something that gets triggering fear, now you're in that chain, and you could be anywhere on that chain experientially. So, you might all of a sudden pop into, oh, I'm 6 now. Like that was a shitty experience and I'm just going to vomit all over you. So whenever a person's not responding in a logical way to the current energy of the conversation, they're not here. They're somewhere else. So that's the time to pause.
Which means that they have dropped from logic, reason, and accessible willpower, and they've dropped into their subconscious, which is where all the emotions are. Okay.
Generally speaking.
All right.
And then the last one is nominalizations, where, it's just basically a noun that represents concepts like love. You can't hold love in your hands. I can touch a dog. Like we all know what a dog is. I can point to a dog, but I can't show you what love is. I might be able to help you experience it, but I can't, it's not a physical thing. So those are the words that are hard to communicate, but hold massive amounts of usually emotional power. Or super big concepts.
God.
Yeah. God's one of them, right?
Okay.
Country, flag. They're nominalizations to represent lots of things, and very experiential to that person too. So when people start throwing out nominalizations, you're like, oh, well, what do you actually mean by that? So it's a way to go deeper on a topic to help understand what they're actually wanting to communicate. Because a lot of times it's nominalizations come out usually out of almost laziness sometimes, being out the big sledgehammer versus articulating the finer emotional desires.
Marriage.
Yep. Yeah, there's, when we get dysregulated, especially.
I'm just saying. All right.
Anybody got any observations or questions around meta model?
Really good, man.
This one I'll just briefly touch on. This is kind of the coping quadrants, where you can kind of tell the big places that you might be having problems. So is it a cognitive? Is it physiological? Is it the spiritual identity, or is it chemistry? And what's interesting about these is it can both get you into something and get you out of something. So if you're stuck in, let's say, self-talk, negative self-talk, go do some posture, go do some breathing, go do some exercises, go experience some nature. So it's a way to kind of, these are the areas where you can pop yourself out of a bad place. Or it could be also where you've gotten into a bad place too. Yeah.
That was a good resiliency model, John.
Yeah.
Right. That's some just classic resiliency work.
And we're all addicts, right? That's kind of the human experience. So pick your addiction. Are we wanting to improve, grow, help? Which is your core values, right? Ultimately. Because if we say worship money, we're going to do anything to get money, versus worshiping community or some higher value set. We're going to do those things. So.
Hey, so those are also archetype quadrant related. Cognitive skills is king, physiology is warrior, chemistry is magician. Well, maybe the tools of the internal is magician.
Yeah, magician.
Yeah.
So we could probably flip physiological and chemistry.
Yeah, chemistry's lover on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at that because food and drugs are like the shadow of the lover, the appeasement of addiction,
Yep.
right? Where
Mhm.
they're the positive healing force to the warrior. I was looking at the diagonal, right?
Mhm.
And then the physiology, the exercise, deep breathing, posture exercise, that's healing for the lover.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I'll flip that later because that aligns pretty nicely.
Yeah, it's tight.
And coincidental too, right? So it's interesting that
Yeah.
so many things align very well.
It's shocking how often that pops.
Mm-hmm.
I did a workshop with a guy talking about the 4 main profit drivers of business, and he was rattling them off, and I was like, I wonder if that matches, and it it just perfectly lined up. It just happens over and over and over. So there's some system at work here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's coping quadrants. All right, awesome. Put that on the map.
And then I'll kind of leave this one up to you guys. If we're up for it, we can do some demos. Maybe have some interesting experiences. We've got a few minutes left. Or if there's any comments or questions.
Hey, John got to do this last time. Would there be another guy that could do a little healthy deep dive? Brian, would that be something you'd be willing to do?
You're on mute.
I'm open.
Very cool.
Hey fellas, I gotta
see
bounce.
someone
I just
else
got my
just
kids back
called.
from my their mom, and I'm gonna go have dinner with them for the first time.
Awesome.
Bye, brother. Love you, man.
Love you guys.
Thanks for joining,
Very
John.
much. Good night.
So what I love about the lemon test is it kind of shows us how we enter into trances all the time. We're constantly going in and out of them. It's kind of the natural way we more like we can almost think of it as like accessing memory or accessing something internally. And then we're just utilizing that natural propensity to do work, which is the hypnosis side. So if you guys are up for it, willing to have a little interesting experience. Yeah. As long as it's safe and appropriate, follow along. What I love about this one is it's kind of fun too. So if you guys are willing to help me out, put your hands out, and we're going to basically imagine that there is a lemon actually in our hands. So just take a deep breath all the way in, all the way out, and imagine there's a nice, big, juicy, ripe lemon in your hands. Feel the weight of that lemon. Allow that lemon to kind of roll around in your hands. Does it have any imperfections? What's the shape, the texture? And just really focus on the lemon in your hands. Now, with your left hand, scratch the surface of that lemon. You perhaps may even start salivating in anticipation of that smell rising from the lemon. Wow. It's amazing, the fresh scent of a lemon. Now bring that lemon to your nose. What does that smell like? What sensations do you feel? What are you noticing in and around your body? You might start noticing changes. Now I want you to take a big bite of that rich, juicy, ripe lemon. Mm. You might notice things are happening. And when you're ready, go ahead and put your hands down, then come back. Like, tell me, what was that like?
Before you said smell the lemon, when you said scratch the lemon, my nostrils flared.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I'm getting ready. This is going to be pungent.
So how many people experienced the physical smell? Yeah. What about salivating before you actually bit into it? Yeah. It's truly amazing, right? Because the mind, the body, the senses, they're all linked. And for the most part, we can't determine reality versus thought. It's all one thing to us. So in an experiment like this, where you're totally imagining, all your senses are firing, like it's actually happening, triggering either a past memory or imagined response. So it's just an interesting way to start thinking about how the bidirectional effects are. The mind affects body, the body affects mind. Dallas, you have a question?
Yeah, this made me think about that. Um, do you think it's valuable to have your own inventory of healing memories?
Absolutely. Milton Erickson actually talks about a lot. He was very sick late in life and he was in incredible amounts of pain. And what he did is he went through his entire life and found moments of love, strength, compassion, pleasure. And he would every day he would go through and rebuild all of those memories and strengthen them into something that was usable for him to get him through his day because he was in so much pain. And of course, anybody can use that technique, right? It's all of our experiences are tools and resources for us to go do whatever we want to go do. Just like this lemon test shows that we can create the sensations. So we can also therefore create joy, happiness, strength, love, compassion, all that stuff by accessing a previous experience of that or generating a new one. It's easier to access something you've already done versus generating new, but they're all together.
Mhm. So that would be something to put in your journal, like as you recall those memories that you cherish or whatever, is to think about them and write more details down each time you think about them to build it up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that generally how that works?
I mean, typically I would use something like an anchoring technique, where we would bring it up and then anchor that to either a thought or an action. That's how I would personally do it, but there's lots of ways to do it. So fish stories or hunting stories or exciting stories. Every time, you know the old tale where every time somebody would tell it, the fish grew a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going backwards, grabbing a memory, bringing it out of the box. You're excited about it because you're retelling an exciting story. Now you tell the fish as a little bit bigger because you're excited. The excitement is coloring your past experience, your memory. So you're telling it in a more excited state. So the fish grows. Then you take that memory and put it back in the box. Next time you tell it, you take it out of the box, you relive the excitement. So now you're telling it a little bit more excited. And then you take that memory and then put it back in the box. The problem is this also works in the negative. Somebody harmed you. Now you take that harm out of the box, you go, oh shit, that person, blah, blah, blah. Right? Now that hurt is getting bigger because you're putting more energy into that thought. Then you take that thought, put it back in the box. And then let's say there's an external trigger. a facial expression, a voice intonation, a location, putting your hand on the steering wheel, some external thing triggering that memory to come back out of the box. You relive all those experiences, and then now you're in it without even knowing it. And then now you're adding more negativity to that thought, strengthening that neural pathway, and then you're putting it back in the box. So here's the cool thing. Every time we take it out of the box, we have a chance to heal it. We have a chance to change it. Because of neuroplasticity, our brain pathways can change, our memories can change, we can alter how we feel about it. We can't change what happened in the past, but we can change our judgments. We can change the energy. We can change our thoughts. All of that is changeable, not the event itself. I can't go back and change your childhood, but I can change the way you think about your childhood, or that event with your spouse, or that event at work. Well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Actually, that experience gave me the power to go, oh, now I can overcome that. So in it may have sucked, but now looking back at it, instead of that suck energy, you go, oh, well, now it's actually appreciation. Now it's a resource. Now I can take that and apply it to something new and become a better person for it. Versus going, oh, it's always going to be pain. It's always going to be this, right? So this is an example of accessing and reaccessing a memory. So whenever you feel it, now you have the opportunity to impact it for better or worse. Just like a tool can be used in any direction.
That's huge. It's almost like changing your own history.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, changing how you feel about your history, to be more specific.
Yeah, because it's how you feel about it that is the threshold guardian of your own success.
Yep. Yeah, in K4 terms. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think a monstrous example of this is all the negative stories we have about our dads, and then the resurrecting, our fathers from the underworld, which is acceptance and absolution, and a reframe of all of those stories of our dad that when we were very small and young and weak were not what he actually is. And so there's a reframing of a resurrection of the way we view our fathers that is central hero's journey stuff. And I think this speaks right into that. Because our father lives in some box, of our in our deep memories, and that's not probably the actual man that was there. It's the little kid's version of that scary man who was there.
Excellent point, because who's actually, and this is where it really, like, you can't ignore it anymore once you start thinking about it this way. Who actually hurt you the first time? The person involved, right? They did something to you. You felt hurt. Who hurt you every other time past that first time? You. They didn't do anything to you the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, or the 10,000th time you relived that memory. That was you hurting yourself the whole time. So this is where forgiveness is so powerful. You're not letting the person off the hook for the whatever they need to receive as a punishment or whatever. Forgiveness is about letting go and healing the emotion around the event so that you can stop hurting yourself. For example, if you had somebody cheat on you, they cheated on you once, and then you relived that memory of that cheating until you let that go. So how many times did they cheat on you? Every time you replayed it, right? It's a hard one to swallow. But once you can take the ownership of that emotion, you can process it, you can give forgiveness, both to the person involved. And here's the weird, this starts getting into woo-woo land, but they change too once you forgive them. But more importantly, forgiving yourself for reliving it, letting it go so you can heal it and move forward, and finding some value in it to help you even become a better person. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, turn your mess into your message, right? Pain in our lives gives us the foundation of tools to be able to handle harder things. That's a choice you have to make to turn it into a tool rather than pain.
Ride the dragon.
Ride the dragon. Anybody have a question around that? Cool.
So,
sorry, is that?
yeah, I mean, so I guess essentially what it is, to say it a little bit different way, is that as long as we keep reliving whatever that original wound is, then that's what's going to continue to manifest in our lives.
Wherever you put your energy or your thoughts, your energy flows.
Right. So it's kind of like the guys or the people out there that constantly say they're broke all the time. Then they're going to just continue to be broke because that's their.
Yeah.
That's
it's an identity, right?
Right.
It's a belief about self. I am broke, therefore I do broke things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, so your identity translates into your values and your beliefs, which translates into your behaviors, which are the inputs to the results.
Right.
If you want a different result, change the inputs. Your inputs are controlled by your behaviors are controlled by your values and beliefs, your values and beliefs are controlled by your identity. So that's why the higher up the pyramid you can change it, the bigger the change effect, because you're massively changing your behavior sets. Good observation.
Yep.
Since we're running out of time, I'll just do this one super quick. Brian, if you want to volunteer, I won't put you on the spot, but this could be something of interest. We are recording, so anything that's said will be public. What I will say though is content-free work is incredibly valuable in scenarios like this. If you don't want to say something, use a symbol for it. So for example, a person, a feeling, a location. Don't actually use the person's name or anything you want to stay private. Just represent it with something. I don't care what that something is, as long as you know and you feel what that is. Call it yellow daisy or whatever. And as long as you know what that means, that's all that matters. So if you want to keep something private, that's all you have to do. Give it a symbol.
Okay.
Can we go back to the lobby, Christos? Or the group?
Sure. Well, let me go through the process real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, we're identifying a present state, desired state, where you are, where you want to go, creating a baseline. How emotional is the feeling from 0 to 10 or 1 to 100? It doesn't really matter. We're just keeping it consistent. The 2-tap protocol uses the governor and conception lines. Don't worry about the terminology right now. It's more acupuncture world. Basically, just think of it as there's highways in the body that energy flows within. They're all connected to all parts of the body, accessible externally. That's that right-hand column that you're looking at: governor, conception, bladder, gallbladder, stomach, all those things. In the 2-tap, it's the shortcut system. We're using the governor and conception, which is connected to all the other lines. That's why we call it the shortcut. Top of the head, it's the crown of the head. Think of soft spot on a baby. That's that point right there. And then the other one, if you put your fingers on the points of your collarbone, that little notch on both of them, come halfway in the middle and up a little. So it's kind of that hollow recession point. Now, don't get too fixated on location. The lines actually run almost everywhere. So it's less important to get perfect accuracy and more important about the process right now. We verbally affirm the letting it go statement because we want to use as many senses as we can possibly feel to help it. Voice is being one of them. And then we do a little work, we retest, see where we're at, and we're basically going for 0 or to wherever endpoint that we're going for. All right, so let me hop out of this. Let's see. All right, Brian. Tell us something that you feel. Let's probably, given the time, let's give it like somewhere in a 3 to 4 range emotionally that you'd like to let go of. Something that's bothering you, something that's needing to be changed.
It has to be a 3 to 4 out of 10, right?
That the only reason I'm doing that is because of where we are on time. If you want to go bigger, absolutely. If anybody wants to stick around for the whole thing, otherwise, feel free to drop if you need to drop. But feel free to pick whatever. I was just usually the lower the number, the faster it goes.
Okay.
But if you want to pick a 10, you can go for it.
Am I going to be describing the situation?
If you want to share it publicly, sometimes context is valuable. If you don't want to share, just give it a symbol.
Okay. Can I give it a color?
Yeah, color, texture, size, location. Is it a voice? Is it a feeling? Is it a location? Is it in the body? Is it outside the body? All those kind of questions can be put into the symbol.
It's a red triangle.
A red triangle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on this part.
Okay. What does the red triangle feel like?
Insecure. It feels vulnerable.
Vulnerable. Mm-hmm.
And well, icky.
Icky. Mm-hmm. What color was it again?
Red.
Red triangle, icky, vulnerable in the upper chest.
Mm-hmm.
Really kind of let it feel it. Just settle into that feeling. It's going to be uncomfortable. Just sit with it for a second. Let it come up. Now with your opposite hand, start tapping on the top of your head. I want you to take a deep, slow inhale, preferably through the nose and out through the mouth. And then audibly say, let it go.
Let it go.
And you can tap at whatever speed feels comfortable, at whatever pressure feels comfortable. Breathing in, letting it go. And if it helps, imagine a healing light entering as you breathe in, going to that spot and loosening it up. Letting it go. Now come down to the other point and start tapping there. Repeating the breathing and the affirmation. So breathing in, imagining healing light coming in, going to that spot. Let it go.
Let it go.
One more time. Breathing in, feeling light, and then letting it out.
Let it go. Let it go.
And when you're ready, go ahead and stop tapping and notice what's changed. What's different?
It doesn't feel icky.
It doesn't feel icky. How incredible is that? In a few short minutes, it went from icky to not icky. What replaced the ickiness? Or what would you like to be replaced?
Calm,
Calm. Mm-hmm.
ease,
Ease.
and confidence.
Confidence. That sounds better. Imagine confidence. Do you have a clean memory of confidence?
Yes.
Yeah. Invite that confidence. Let it swell up, increase, and allow that to permeate your body. And there might be some background noise. Just let it pass. And send that confidence to your chest, filling that void. Allowing the confidence to grow and expand. What's changing now?
I feel a certainty and a clarity.
A certainty and clarity. What does that do for you now?
I feel empowered.
And with this empowerment, who can you become?
Badass dude.
A badass dude. Say it. Say it bigger. Say it louder.
A badass dude.
Mm-hmm. More intense.
Fucking badass.
There you go. What can you accomplish now?
Anything I set out to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And what is that?
Thriving relationships, business, finances.
And imagine a future, say 10 years from now, where you have achieved all of these things. That confidence has bloomed, changing all aspects of your life. What does that feel like? Who have you become?
It feels great. I've become my fullest expression as a man. And just a compassionate warrior.
Go ahead and put your hand back on your chest with both hands over top of each other and bring all of that energy back to the present moment. You have created that future. Bring that energy, that gift, that experience of certainty, of confidence, back to the present moment. And through the present moment to the beginning, healing anything that it needs to heal along the way. Letting go of anything that needs to be let go. Changing anything that needs to be changed. Growing and expanding. What's changing?
I'm changing.
I am changing. I have changed.
My life's changing.
Mhm. What did you think of that experience?
That's really powerful. I felt this energy, like activation. It was almost like a heat that like flooded my body. It was like almost like a being flooded, like like feels like a hot flash of energy. And it was almost like like the nervousness and the uncertainty I had. I previously had associated with that, like it almost like it transformed into like an activation energy, and
Pretty
it
cool, huh?
moved. Yeah, like it really moved. It sort of was like kind of in this place, and it sort of like moved like up. And if I really like, I'm sweating right now.
When your body releases something it has been holding on to, massive energy is expelled. That could be resulting in heat or perspiration or any numerous of things. So give yourself space to heal, to change, to allow your nervous system to readapt. Drink some water, get some rest, and be patient with yourself.
All right, great. I will.
I hope you all enjoyed that. Happy to do more. Give me your feedback. I'd love to help you guys in any way. And a little plug for our resident author. Philip put out a book. So go check that out.
Yep. Got it.
Put the link somewhere in there. Appreciate you, Brian. It's
Appreciate you.
All right.
it's always a pleasure to
Awesome.
hold space.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Take care. See you guys later.